Good afternoon, everybody. I know it's a bit of an odd time to go live, but it's the only chance I have today. So you can watch this later, and I'll also upload it to my YouTube channel in case you want to share with anyone else. We have a lot of new members in the group again the last week, so welcome everybody. If you don't know who I am, I am Shemaine Linney. I am your host. I'm a nutritional therapist, biohacker, certified iridologist, personal trainer, and a lot of other things. But most of all, I'm just happy to have you all here with me because this group is very much a learning group. So obviously a lot of people starting a weight loss or a fat loss journey at this time of the year, and they are. It's just the thing to do. It's a good time of the year to do it. I've started a lot of new clients and their goal is to get healthier and to lose some body fat. So this question, I want to talk about measuring your body fat. So it obviously comes up a lot with my clients. And there's many ways to measure your body fat, but there are a few considerations that many people don't think of or know. So before I even go on, I need people to understand that all different measuring tools of body fat, even underwater weighing, DEXA, bioelectrical impedance machines, or they're sometimes called bioimpedance machines, bod pods, calipers, measuring tapes, waist to hip ratios, and so on and so on. None of them are perfect. None of them. Not even that gold standard DEXA that many of us hear about. Even that has inaccuracies. They all have error. They all work on approximations and determinations which are used alongside algorithms, which are almost like assumptions. They're data-based assumptions. So it's important that you remember, no matter what tool you use to track or measure your body fat or your weight, it's not going to be 100% accurate. It's not. But here's the thing. The most important thing you can do when you're measuring or tracking fat or weight is to use the same method and weigh even the same time frame every single time. So under the same conditions, you want to be tracking or measuring every week or how often you're doing it. So everything needs to be the same. This then helps to minimize error, and that supports accuracy. So even if the number on the scales or the DEXA machine is wrong, but you're using the same method and the same tool every time, then the change will be accurate. So actually, the best time to do a DEXA is first thing in the morning in a fasted state, which most people are not going to do. Most of the time I see people, they're doing a DEXA maybe after work or after their workout, but really to get the most accurate results as you can, you want to be doing a DEXA first thing in the morning when you're fasted. And the same goes for bioimpedance machines, whether or not that's the bigger machines or the smaller scales that you can get in your house. So really what matters is doing it at the same time, because it's the relative change that's important, and that's indicative to your progress or your regression. So for example, if you pick a measurement that weighs you heavier or lighter than you actually are, as long as you're doing it the same way every time, the results will be consistent in itself. Does that make sense to people? And also, it's important to know, because I really don't think a lot of people know this, is lean mass. This is going to blow some minds, but lean mass is not the same as muscle mass, and especially not for any of these machines. Lean body mass includes your organs, your hair, skin, nails, water. Water is lean. Water is body mass. So if you drink 2 liters of water before doing a DEXA or something, one, you're going to potentially look more bloated, you're going to feel more full, but the machine is going to tell you that you're leaner than you actually are because water is lean mass. So there, straight away, your numbers for lean mass, they may mean nothing at all in regards to muscle mass. But this also means that measuring first thing in the morning is going to be very different than measuring post-workout or even later on in the evening. Like, the numbers are going to vary widely. Always kind of blows my mind or makes me giggle in the gym when I see people after their workout, they stand on the scale, and I'm like, that makes no sense at all. You've drank maybe 1 to 2 liters of water in your workout, your muscles retain a lot of fluids, and then exercise is inflammatory, so you also have the inflammatory aspect of things, but there's going to be a huge variation. You'll have a lot more water in your body as the day goes on, regardless if you're trying to drink more water or not. You cannot control that fluctuation of fluid unless you drink nothing at all. That, of course, is dangerous, and most of us are not doing that. So your results on a bioimpedance or a DEXA first thing in the morning could be very different to later on in the evening. And of course, people are going to ask, what do I like? Well, a lot of my clients will use a scale. I actually really like the Skinfold calipers or Skinfold measurements. I have a whole PDF on how to do it precisely in my master's group. And the Skinfold measurements or calipers, they do have approximately 2% error. So they're 2% below your true body fat. And that would make sense because when you're pinching Skinfold, you're not going to pinch all of the fat. You're just not. So there's approximately a 2% error there. But that's okay. If that's the tool you're always using and you see then a reflection of progress using that tool, then that reflection of progress is going to be accurate. But Skinfold measurements, they're easy for most people to do. They're quite affordable. You can get a caliper for maybe $10, if not free, off someone that has one and doesn't use it. They're also non-invasive. And calipers can actually be better for leaner people. So you're going to, if you wanted to just do it easily, you would do a 3-site measurement. I personally like the back of my arms, under my shoulder blades, and then also around my hips. So you do a 3-site measurement. You can do more, but if you want to keep things easy, do a 3-site measurement, and then you're going to do each one 3 times and take the average of that. So I mentioned, like, a lot of my clients will use the scale. The scale is a very viable tool. I know a lot of people don't like the scales and have bad relationships and connotations with the scales, and that can stem from decades of weighing and Weight Watchers and diets and disappointment. But it's very important to remember the scale is just a tool. And most of the time with my clients, and most people, I think, we're not only using the scales, we're also looking at ourselves in the mirror. We're checking how tight or loose our clothes are. But the scales can be a very valid tool. The only problem is, this is how I kind of look at the scales, and I have most of my clients use the scale along with monitoring other things, is that for someone potentially like me who's actively trying to build more muscle, and I can build muscle easy, that is going to influence the scale. So even if my number's not changing, or it might be going up because I'm actively trying to build more muscle, yes, it can be a mind game. Try not to use the F word. It can be a mind game. It can really mess with your head, but you have to have the more realistic outlook of, like, well, these are my bigger goals overall. I want to be more muscular, leaner, stronger. So I know this number on the scales is not an accurate reflection of my body fat. It might be my weight, and it might be okay that my weight is going up because I'm trying to build more muscle. And when you're trying to build more muscle, there is a signaling factor to consider that that signal is not just directed to your biceps or your chest. That signal ripples throughout your body. So weightlifting, we know, helps you build more brain cells. So brain cells have a mass. If you're let's say you're doing a lot of chest presses, that signal is going through your whole torso. So that's encouraging muscle growth around your heart as well. And then we have like leg day can very much influence the growth of tissue in the liver and the kidneys and other organs. So you're not just building muscle. That's important to recognize. And another thing around the scale is there's a lot of influences on the scales. Fluid is a big one. We cannot control fluid. We can try, but really women is harder. We've got our whole menstrual cycle, the moon cycle will influence it. Sodium can influence it. Now, I'm not talking about sea salt, but sodium can influence it that you might be exposed to through packaged foods or takeout. Inflammatory compounds, poor sleep can influence the scale, stress can influence the scale, crying will influence the scales. So there's a lot that will influence the scales, and you have to remember that before you even step on the scale. Where I see the scale work very appropriately or more accurately is in my older clients, generally 60, 70 and so on, because as younger women we still have hormones playing in our favor, and we still have the potential to build new tissue easily. Even if we're not actively lifting weight, we can still be building hair, skin, nails, stem cells, bone, all of that very actively. Of course, uterine lining if you still are cycling. So if you're eating a very nutritious, healing, well-designed kind of protocol, nutritional template, that should encourage healing and regeneration of the body. So you're going to build new tissue that will influence the scale. So the scale can be, it's still a valid tool, but we'll see more kind of steady state numbers. Maybe it will plateau a little bit more often because you're a younger woman and you're still in that range where you can build tissue easier. Whereas generally, as people, women, men get older, they're not exercising as intensely, they're probably not eating as much protein, they're probably not retaining as much muscle as they used to. The scales is going to be a more accurate reflection for them because they don't have these other outside influences. So, but the scale's still a very valid tool, especially if you do it along with other kind of mechanisms that you would use to track progress. So one other one that I use with my clients would be biomarkers, and biomarkers can be very helpful, especially for putting things into perspective and keeping people like realistic of what's really happening. So these biomarkers can be changes in the body that are positive or negative. They can be reflective on a blood or a thyroid panel or a Dutch test. Otherwise they could just be other things, bowel movements, rashes, how your clothes fit, like lots of other things. And these biomarkers can affect all of the measurements of tools, and definitely the scale, but even like your gold standard DEXA, your biomarker can influence that for sure. And I know I sound like a broken record half of the time speaking about inflammation and fluid retention with my clients, like you wouldn't believe how many times I say it a week, but it's real. It is real, and it can be driven by many things that are out of our control, like whether or not your biomarkers are negative or positive one morning can very much be influenced by if there was a full moon last night and you had a bad sleep. So it's really important to remember that. So how do I recommend my clients take their measurements or track their body weight or body fat? Well, I try to encourage them to do it at the same day of the week as much as possible. Life happens, sometimes we'll have to change it, but as much as possible, we're doing it the same day of the week. We're trying to do it at the same time as much as possible. So if you normally do it on a Saturday morning around 7 a.m., try to stick to that as much as possible. And you're trying to use the same scale or the same tool that you always use. I know there can be huge variations from scale to scale. I might have someone who always weighs on their scale at home, but next of all, they're staying with their relatives next weekend and they use their scale, and there might be like a 5 pound difference, and that definitely can mess with your head. So as much as possible, try to do it on the same tool. If you were using a DEXA or one of the bigger bioimpedance machines, you might be doing anywhere from once a month to once every 3 months, but ideally kind of trying to keep it as accurate as possible, the same time of the day. If you're doing something like that, you kind of want to be cognizant of when your period or menstrual cycle is going to be and stuff like that. So first thing in the morning, after you use the bathroom, after a bowel movement is ideal, but not always possible for everyone. So at least try use the bathroom, same day of the week, same time, same machine. One thing to take away is, and this is also important, please don't put too much focus on the number, because they all have errors. And they are just tools to help indicate if you're moving in the right direction or if you're not. So regardless of the tool, regardless of the percentage error where it might indicate that you're higher or lower on body fat percent, as long as you're using the same tool and it's changing consistently and it's going in the right direction, then that's an accurate result. Whether or not the number itself is an accurate result, the fact that it's moving down or up if you're trying to gain, that's where the accuracy comes in. So I hope people have found this helpful. If you've got questions, let me know. Pop it onto my YouTube channel and then you can share if anyone else. It's obviously the time of the year where we need to know where we're starting, if we want to know where we're going, and so on. Let me know if you've any questions. I'll chat to you guys later. Bye.